Good Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope your weekend's off to a great start. Plenty of Browns to talk about. We'll have a film breakdown on some free agent wide receivers with Lance Reisland. But we will begin by talking Browns. This is from CBSSports.com. Projected cap space and team needs for each and every one of them. So they project the Browns cap space to be $13,534,000 and change over the cap, but we all know that will be renegotiated and they'll be able to do whatever they need to do. Team needs, they say, defensive tackle first, wide receiver, and then offensive tackle. We'll get to that in a minute. Browns could use an upgrade at wide receiver, but will have to clear some cap space this offseason to do so. Consistent number 2 option will help out Deshaun Watson, whose hefty contract significantly kicks in this year. They'll need help on the defensive line as well. So welcome in Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Ashley, if you're talking long-term, I can understand the offensive tackle. Short-term, defensive tackle, wide receiver, and defensive end, edge, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, those have to be fixed for the Browns to do what they think they can do.
Yeah, my first thought when I saw that was, offensive tackle over edge rusher. That's interesting because, once again, last year or this past season, when it comes to rushing quarterbacks, it was Myles Garrett and everybody else. He had 16 sacks. The next highest sack getter on this roster was Taven Bryan with only 2. I think they really needed more production like they got in 2021, where they got 9 sacks out of Jadeveon Clowney. Takk McKinley was a great rotational piece that also came in there and was pretty disruptive. They just didn't have the same thing this past season. And I think when you have a guy like Myles Garrett, you need another strong threat to help draw attention away from him. So I do think at offensive tackle, they just locked up Jack Conklin. If he can stay healthy, great. I mean, I think he's obviously so good. He's an all-pro kind of guy. Jed Wills is obviously, I think, still a little bit of a question mark and what they're going to do with him and that 5th-year option, and is he going to get an extension here? So that is interesting. But like you said, I think it's more of a longer-term thing. Jed Wills is going to be here this next season. So it's really, for me, more important, I think, to find another guy off the edge that can really be disruptive in a Jim Schwartz defense.
Yeah, and if you think about it, Myles Garrett getting 16 sacks and the defensive quarterbacks are stepping up into where a defensive tackle should be. That just, it kind of further illustrates how bad, for lack of a better term, the defensive tackle play was, because quarterbacks are stepping up to avoid Garrett, and it should be right into the arms of a defensive tackle if he's winning his one-on-one matchup.
Yeah, it's almost like Myles Garrett is making those plays for those guys by extension of what he does. So it's true, like they just need more help, I think, on that line. Overall, the numbers were not good. We know their defensive tackles ranked really low across the league. I'm talking like Taven Bryan was, I think, 72 in defensive grade on PFF. Then you got to go to the 130s to find like Jordan Elliott, Perion Winfrey, those guys. So it just was not a good year. And on top of not having quarterback, disruption from your other ends, it's really brutal. Alex Wright, he, I thought, had a decent rookie year for where they got him. He was great at batting down passes, but he wasn't good at getting sacks. He had no sacks, I think like 12 total pressures or something like that. So he wasn't really disruptive in that way. I think he needs to take another step. And then on top of that, you got to find somebody else who can get to quarterbacks.
Again, you've addressed this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. You can check that out on cleveland.com as well. What Browns players do you think need to step up in 2023?
There are so many guys, I think, that need to step up. And that was the discussion we had before the podcast. On the offensive side of the ball, like, you can basically name a ton of people. But I'll go with Deshaun Watson first. I mean, obviously he only had 6 games this past year, and you maybe saw flashes of him, but I think he really needs to come out and show he can be as productive as he was during 2020 and in the early years of his career after missing all the time that he did. In terms of his pass catchers, David Njoku, another guy who I think is going to benefit from having Deshaun Watson around him all the time. He only got to play a handful of games with him. He dealt with an ankle injury of his own. As my colleague Mary Kay Cabot likes to say, he could be an 8-touchdown kind of guy. And I think the Browns need that from him in any given season. 8 touchdowns a year. That's an ideal number given the extension they gave him. Defensive side of the ball, Greg Newsome comes to mind. He hasn't really created takeaways. That's something I know that really bothers him. He's still looking for that first career interception. And I think you need those guys to be disruptive in the back end of your defense. And then another guy defensively, I would say, is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. We thought he was going to take a big jump after a strong rookie year. I think he showed off his athleticism, his versatility, especially going against the Ravens in October, the way he kind of shadowed Lamar Jackson, created a huge fumble, so he can create takeaways too. But injuries really stopped him this year. And I think he kind of needs to get past that and get back to being available all the time. And then I'll even throw in a special teams guy, because why not? Again, I think there's a lot of guys on this team that need to step up. And I'm going to say Cade York. I still have a lot of faith in Cade York. I've written about him extensively at this point, but Cade's admitted, and I think this was his problem, is that he was overthinking things in terms of his technique as the season went on. And he said, the NFL season is so long that you can't be worried about technique the later the season goes. You kind of have to let your muscle memory take over and trust your process. So I think any of those guys you can make an argument for, they need to take their game to the next level.
Yeah, those were the main ones that I had. And the other one I would say would be Denzel Ward. I think Jim Schwartz, I think his system will play more to the strengths of Denzel Ward. Again, this is another topic that you guys dealt with, Orange and Brown Talk podcast. What do the coaching changes mean for, Myles Garrett and Deshaun Watson, do you think?
Yeah, so for Myles Garrett, with Chris Kiffin gone and now coaching the linebackers in Houston, I believe, it's always going to be notable when you lose a defensive line coach. But I think what we know about Jim Schwartz's defense is pass rushers tend to benefit. I think he thinks that Myles Garrett still can get to another level for how well he's played. I think he's going to allow him to line up wider, to get more preferable matchups, to get more of a head start pass rushing. And I think it's really important when you're installing this new defense for him to maybe have a guy who he has some familiarity with as a coach. So I think all of those things could factor together. And it'll be somebody new that Myles Garrett can kind of pick their brain, learn from, and that can help him learn this new defense that he's going to be playing in. And yeah, Drew Petzing, he's not officially gone yet, but we know that John Gannon likes him for that offensive coordinator spot in Arizona after he got hired there. And if he is gone, I think it's always going to be noteworthy to see who is coaching Deshaun Watson and what they do, given how much money they've spent on Deshaun Watson. I know Mary Kay Cabot and I kind of kicked around this idea of what if they went really out of the box and hired like Deshaun's personal quarterbacks coach, Quincy Avery. Don't know how likely that is, because I think that could cause a lot of tension in the building, but it is just definitely something to keep an eye on, because that person's going to play a huge role in Deshaun Watson getting acclimated to a full season, his first full season with the Browns.
And we'll have more on that in just a minute. Let's take a look at this, and I know you wrote an article on this, and we've talked at length on Sports4CLE about these guys. 4 potential Browns free agent targets that Pro Football Focus considers underrated, so guys that you could get decent value on. We'll start out with a defensive tackle, A'Shawn Robinson, defensive end, Justin Houston, wide receiver, Paris Campbell, and center Ethan Posick. Take us through which of those guys you like and who you think the Browns are more likely to sign.
Yeah, Paris Campbell, I know we were talking before the show, like that's a guy we both really like. I think he can play in the slot. He could play outside. His biggest thing is going to be staying healthy, but he's definitely speedier, more of that fast twitch kind of guy than David Bell is. And then on this list, I also threw in Ethan Posick, who I think is so important for them at center because of how well he did last year. I think he would only benefit from another year with Bill Callahan. He can pull. Has prototypical size at 6'6", but that's a guy I think could make a huge impact if he comes back to this team and is able to keep improving. But he just might wind up being out of the Browns' price range because of how well he played this last season.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The one that's intriguing as well is A'Shawn Robinson. That's a bigger defensive tackle, something that the Browns don't have. And I would expect with Jim Schwartz, because he's a guy that, you know, he likes to, okay, this guy has this skill, let's use him in these situations. He likes to mix and match more than, you know, these are our 4 guys, we're going to throw them out there, and when they get tired, he's big at just kind of waving guys in situationally based, especially on the line. I think Robinson might be a guy that appeals to them because he can absorb double teams and he's a bigger guy.
Yeah, I think he's kind of, and I wrote this, you know, it's funny because in PFF's evaluation of him as they went through these underrated guys, they're like, he's not really a difference maker. You know, he had a 60 pass rush grade, and I'm like, that's basically better than any of the Browns defensive tackles had this past year. And his run defense grades have been way better in the last 2 seasons, 78.3 and 68.7. Again, Browns guys, you had Browns players in the 30s. I mean, that's absolutely brutal. So I think, you know, they describe him as a rotational player, but if he wants to come to Cleveland and play a larger role, I think that would certainly be a possibility given who else they have on this roster right now.
All right. We mentioned this a little bit earlier. Mary Kay tweeted out, as expected, Cardinals' new head coach, Jonathan Gannon from St. Ignatius High School, requested permission to interview Browns quarterback coach Drew Petzing for the offensive coordinator's position. He's expected to get that job, and Mary Kay has been talking about that for a couple of days. She's been on top of that. Let me ask you this. Is it an opportunity for Kevin Stefanski to just get a fresh set of eyes and maybe some new ideas as to what you do with Deshaun Watson as a quarterback? That's the way I would view it. Do you think that's the way the Browns look at it?
I mean, it could be, but I think it could also be an opportunity. You know, we kicked around this idea the other day about would they kind of promote a guy like T.C. McCartney, who took over the tight ends coach job from Drew Petzing when they promoted him last year, or a guy like Chad O'Shea, who we know has been getting some interest for offensive coordinator jobs, including in Baltimore. You know, they obviously went another direction with Todd Monken, but would the Browns once again do a promotion to kind of keep somebody around in-house who they really like? But I do think it's really important. You have to get this right, because you can't waste another year of Deshaun Watson's contract after you only got him for 6 games this past season. So I definitely think you kind of have to look under every single, leave no stone unturned in a search for your next quarterback's coach and do what's best for Deshaun in this offense.
Yeah, you have to find a way to make the offense work and make Deshaun Watson look more like the 2020 version of him that led the league in passing. Ashley Bastock and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We'll continue talking Browns. Take a look at Greg Newsome, what his role might be, plus some look at wide receivers to keep an eye on. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. This is from Dog Pound Daily. 3 Browns players whose career fell off the rails in 2022. Number 3, they go with left tackle Jed Wills. Talk a little bit more about him in a minute. Number 2, John Johnson III, free safety. And number 1, Kareem Hunt, running back, Cleveland native as well. Ashley, I think people get frustrated with Jed Wills because there's all kinds of all-22 video, and you can see there sometimes he just doesn't look like he's finishing the play. The effort's not there. I would say he's not living up to the top 10 pick that he was in the draft, but he's also an average left tackle in the NFL right now. He's not horrible by any means, but he's certainly not worthy of the 10th pick that they took him at.
Yeah, and I think it, makes it worse almost when you look at a guy like Tristan Wirfs. I think that's the guy he's going to forever be linked to and compared to. And you look at his career and what he's done versus what Jed has been able to do. And also, the offensive line Jed plays on. Even those guys there, he's playing along Pro Bowl level talent all the time. And I think, we've continuously kind of seen these plays like you're describing where it looks like maybe he's not going 100% all the time. And I think with him the last 2 years, we've heard guys allude to almost like him needing to have that that it takes to be successful in this league. And you do start to wonder, okay, how much of a problem is that going to become if your left tackle is essentially the weakest link on your line? So I do think it's a question, and I do think if it's somebody can get through to Jed and say, hey, there are some things you do really well, but we need you to take it to that next level because of the competition that we're facing.
Yeah. John Johnson III is another one. When they signed him, I thought it was a great free agent signing. I'm not sure that he was used the correct way in the Browns system. I think they were asking him to do some things that while he could do them, they weren't what he did in L.A. where he looked great with the Rams.
Yeah, that was, I think, always the biggest problem. It felt like late in 2021, he had maybe started to put the pieces together in Joe Woods' system that his production could be equivalent to what he did in L.A. And I just think it didn't ever quite get there. I think maybe that was a system issue with how they used him, with not really adjusting. I think he's a guy who has the ability to be pretty versatile. And he found himself a lot of the time, you look at his PFF grades, I would always tend to take with a grain of salt because of the way the free safety worked in Joe Woods' defense. And a lot of times he would be around plays because he was the last line of defense, which is part of the job, and trying to clean stuff up and failing. But I think in a Jim Schwartz defense, so much more burden is placed on the front of your defense that a guy like JJ3, maybe Jim Schwartz would say, hey, I really need this guy. I need him to stick around. Otherwise, I think it's kind of a no-brainer at this point. You need to get that contract restructured if he's going to stay, or he's going to wind up being a cap casualty if Jim Schwartz doesn't think he fits here and Kevin Stefanski doesn't think he fits here anymore, or you can't get that contract restructured.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see. I think Denzel Ward falls into that as well. His PFF grade, it was yeah, but you're asking him to do things that aren't his strengths. So along the lines of cornerbacks, what do you think the role for Greg Newsome should be? And again, this is from the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. How do you think he should be used in 2023?
I know how Greg Newsome feels about playing in the slot. We all know after he tweeted about it last week, where a fan asked him, would you be open to playing inside again? And he tweeted no in all capital letters, and then retweeted Perry on Winfrey, who kind of tweeted a meme, a GIF that also said no with some more colorful language. And I personally did not think Greg thrived in the slot. I think he is a better outside corner. But I also think the Browns really like Martin Emerson. So now you have a problem. You don't have a slot corner, a true slot corner, and you got 3 guys that in theory want to play outside. So I think Greg, by process of elimination, might just get stuck in the slot spot again, even if it's not what he does well. And I don't think that necessarily is fair to him as an individual, but I think winning cures a lot. And if this defense starts performing the way we think it should, maybe Greg won't be as disgruntled with that spot But again, I also think he needs to up his individual production in terms of getting takeaways. And that's a lot harder in that position because he just doesn't have like that body mass that you would expect from a typical slot corner. So I'm really curious to see how it plays out, what Greg Newsome is going to do here long term, because they obviously spent a lot to get him in terms of their draft capital. But it's tough because I know he doesn't want to play there, but you start to realize, like, what are the options for them getting all three of those guys on the field at the same time? And it's probably putting him there, even though I think individually he'd be better outside.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. Winning cures a lot of that. If you win, everything is a little bit better, and if you lose, everything is magnified and nothing seems quite right. Let's take a look at some wide receiver rates of getting open. First one, we're going to take a look at 2022 wide receiver rates getting open versus single man coverage. So that's an important caveat. This against man coverage. Out of 125 wide receivers, David Bell is 27th. Single man snaps 112, number of times open 48, percentage open 42.86. Let's flip and take a look at free agent wide receiver rates of wide receivers getting open against that single man coverage again. Zacchaeus from the Falcons is 18th. Jacoby Myers, free agent, Patriots 19th. Hardman 43rd. Allen Lazard 60th. Juju Smith-Schuster 87. Paris Campbell 99th, 31.68%. It's important to note some of the speedier guys like Hardman and Campbell, teams just won't play man against them. But let's go back to David Bell. That's an impressive job of getting open almost 43% of the time against man coverage. That's a skill that you can use.
It is, and I think it's also promising considering that David is not like that fast twitch kind of speedy guy that Paris Campbell is, for example, for a comparison. I do think, too, the Browns just didn't throw David Bell the ball a ton. I think on PFF they credited him with 32 targets and 24 interceptions, somewhere along that range. Only 2 drops, so he has really reliable hands. So I think that's promising for him. But in order to get a true understanding of what he might look like in this offense, I think you just need a larger sample size to throw him the ball more and see what he can do when given the opportunity, because the opportunities this year just weren't really there for him, especially when you got Amari Cooper. That was a new acquisition. You're trying to get him acclimated, and you have a quarterback change and all these things going on.
All right, before we let you go, let's take a look. Wide receiver options that make sense for the Browns in free agency. This is from BrownsWire.com. So they say DJ Chark, Lions, biggest risk with Chark, and a reason he may be affordable, his injury history. He misses time nearly every year, but if it is a more limited role at the Browns, might be able to stay healthy, do the thing the Browns are missing, help the offense get vertical. Number 2 guy we've talked about a lot, Paris Campbell. When on the field, speed shows, and if the Browns brought him in, he would fill a hole they have. Campbell has reliable hands, as PFF only charted him with 3 drops in 85 targets for the Colts this season. So that's another plus mark with Paris Campbell. And then the third one is Byron Pringle. He's with the Bears, was with the Chiefs. Speed specialist, wouldn't break the bank. Wasn't a good season, caught only 10 passes, 11 games. I think the Browns need something a little more proven than Pringle. So I like Campbell out of that. Chark, I think, is going to be a little bit more expensive. Again, I think I did not realize until I read my notes that he only had the 3 drops and 85 targets, which, again, you got to give, the way I look at Paris Campbell's the easy button for Deshaun Watson. Yeah. I can throw him a 4-yard pass and it can be a 12-yard gain.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think with Paris Campbell, the only downside with him, again, is the injury history and can he stay healthy and things like that, because I think on paper and what we've seen him do on the field, he's exactly what the Browns need in terms of a number 3 receiver. It's just a matter of, well, how often is he actually going to be out there? But the reliable hands on top of more of that fast twitch style would kind of be, I think a level up from what David Bell can provide you because of the speed part of it on top of the reliable hands. So it is going to be interesting. Like you said, Chark, I think, is going to be out of their price range. But Campbell might not be a bad alternative, I think, and just to not be afraid of the injury history scaring you off.
Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Ashley, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks.
Ashley Bastock, check her out. Browns beat reporter, Plain Dealer, and cleveland.com. Always really good stuff. We are going to take a quick timeout, step aside, other side of the break, film breakdown of some of those free agent wide receivers. Lance Reisland straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Another one in our list of free agent film breakdowns. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland, who does all of our film breakdowns. Lance from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Lance, we know wide receiver. We know Mari Cooper 1. We know Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to be there. David Bell. You would expect him to step up. The Browns still need to add something, I think, to give Deshaun Watson another weapon.
Well, yeah, for sure. Amari Cooper is an elite number one receiver, no doubt. He's very good at all three phases, the release, the catch point, and the run after catch. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to get better and better, especially in the red zone, those vertical threats. I think what the Browns really need is a guy in the slot who's sudden and twitchy, can run those jet sweeps and catch those option routes and the overs and the unders and those RPOs on those quick slants and get big yards after catch, kind of be the quarterback's best friend, get some easy throws and some run after catch. They need a guy who's quick and sudden in that slot.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's kind of the easy button for Deshaun Watson or a quarterback. You know, a 4-yard little dump pass turns into 15, 20 yards. And that's kind of, we have talked all week, yards after the catch, something that the Browns are in the bottom 5 in the league in.
Well, yeah, and, even you get those big runs, those 15-yard runs, those 20-yard runs, but what really makes a coordinator's job really easy is when you throw that quick screen and you get 7. Now, all of a sudden, it's 2nd and 3. Now the entire play sheet is open for an offense coordinator. So, they need a guy who can get some easy yards after some easy throws and kind of make everything is so stressful for the Browns right now. Every yard is kind of earned, every first down is kind of earned, everything is hard. They need some easy first down and some easy yards. We're
going to take a look at 5 guys. So the first one we're going to take a look at, Jacoby Myers from the New England Patriots, 26 years old, 6'2", 200 pounds. A pretty good year, 67 catches, 6 touchdowns. What did you see when you took a look on tape at Myers?
Well, he's really good at all 3 levels of the catch. He released the point of catch and the run after catch. His best quality for sure is the ability to make contested catches. Over the last 3 years, he's won 69% of his contested catches, which is number 1 in the league. He's great understanding of coverage, great understanding of defensive backs and the leverage they're trying to play him with. He's very well coached. He's very good in the run game. I think he'd be a great addition, especially in that young receiver room with Cooper and Jones. He gives that kind of 2-3. He does a little bit of everything where he's not as sudden in the slot. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. He's very versatile. He's got a ton of catches. He's got 235 career catches, so he's got a ton of experience. I just think he'd be a good addition. Maybe not exactly what they need in the slot, but a guy who's good overall.
And again, this is a guy that a lot of people think the Patriots will make sure he doesn't get out of there and that they keep him. So we'll see again. But 26 years old, was pretty productive. Another guy, Browns fans are going to know this name, Juju Smith-Schuster, was with the Steelers, was this year with the Chiefs. 3 touchdowns, almost 1,000 yards, 71 catches. What do you see from Juju?
Well, the first thing I see is that he's really good against zone coverage. He's not as good against man coverage, so he has a little bit of problem with press at times, but he's a very physical guy. He's like you said, he's 6'1", 215. Ton of production in his career, 401 receptions for 4,788 yards, so he's had a ton of production. I think he's a big slot. I think he could be really, really beneficial to Watson in terms of the reason I put this, I really like this play is that what Mahomes is doing here is kind of what Watson can do, kind of keep plays alive, improvise, and Juju can find the open areas very, very well. So this play from Mahomes kind of reminds me of what Watson or what the Browns fans are hoping Watson can do and keep him plays alive and finding people open in the scramble situation. And Juju Smith-Schuster does this very, very well.
Smith-Schuster, 26 years old, so kind of fits into that age range as well that the Browns would be looking in. Another guy will be a familiar name, Paris Campbell, Ohio State, also St. Vincent, St. Mary, a little younger, 25, 6 foot, 208 pounds. He's an ascending guy. Best year as a pro this year, 63 catches, 623 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Well, first thing is he's got to stay healthy. He's had a hand injury, a foot injury, a knee sprain. He's had a concussion, so he's got to really work on staying healthy. For me, this is the perfect fit for the Browns. He gets with these easy yards. This is a really short throw here by Matt Ryan, and he gets 20 plus yards on run after catch. So this is that kind of slot thing where you can RPO things. You can have the Browns run game and just kind of put him out there in the slot. And if they don't honor him, you can just flip it out to him and you get big yards. He's really, really good at those easy yards. He runs the full route tree. He can play inside and outside, but I think he's a perfect fit inside for the Browns.
And again, mentioned 25 years old, he was a running back in high school and a really good one, converted to wide receiver at Ohio State. So just from that aspect of things, he's going to be developing a little bit more as a wide receiver as he goes.
Yeah, and being a former running back, he has that run after catch ability. He's really, really good at it. And he has elite speed from back in his high school days at St. Pete. He can really, really run. Not only is he track fast, but he's also football fast. And some guys don't carry that very well to the football field. He does. So if he can stay healthy, he's a really good fit for what the Browns need. Yeah,
the next guy we're going to talk about, another guy that must stay healthy, Mecole Hardman, a little bit shorter, 5'10", 187 pounds, only 24 years old. That did surprise me. He's that young. 25 catches, 297, 4 touchdowns. This year has 16 career touchdowns. Didn't play in the Super Bowl because of a hip/pelvis injury. That's obviously a concern, but what do you see on tape, Lance?
Very, very similar here to Campbell. He's a run after catch guy, so this is simple jet sweep from the Chiefs. Again, easy yards is actually a throw because Mahomes pitched it forward, so this is a pass, but this is easy yards. And it's not a huge run, but it's 7-8 yards that you don't have to block everybody. Not everybody has to be perfect. Again, the Browns right now on offense, everything is hard. All 11 guys have to do things right on every play for them to be successful. Guys like Hardman get in space and they can beat 2 guys and you get a huge play. And that's what the Browns need. They need some guys who get the ball in space and make plays. He can run the gadget plays. He can run the sweep, the reverses, the jet sweeps. Similar skill set to Campbell, a little bit smaller. Again, the injuries with those smaller guys, those injuries kind of scare you a little bit. But this is a guy who's electric in space, and I think he's a guy that would be another good fit for the Browns. Yeah, I would agree. And with a speed guy, when you tell me hip pelvis, you're always going, man, make sure he is back. And if you saw the AFC Championship game, made a catch and kind of got bent in an awkward way, and that's the reason was unable to go after that. Well, you always worry about, again, being down there at camp for the first time, down there in the mix with those guys who are smaller, it's really hard for them to stay healthy. Those are such big humans running around on that football field. Those smaller guys struggle staying healthy. So he's got to be smart. He's got to get down. Again, he's kind of a gadget guy. So he gets caught up in a lot of runs on jet sweeps and RPOs. So he's got to use his speed and then get down.
All right, the fifth and final wide receiver free agent we're going to take a look at, Darius Slayton, 6'1", 190 pounds, just 26 years old, 46 catches, 724 yards, 2 touchdowns this year, does have 15 career touchdowns. What do you see on tape with Slayton, Lance?
Well, one thing is, the first thing that jumped out to me is he's had 170 catches in his career, and he averages 15 yards per catch. So he's very productive when he catches the ball. Here's a classic example of what he does. This is just a simple RPO where that quarterback's going to read to the one receiver side. He's going to read that safety coming down. And he's going to throw the slant or glance route behind him. He does it very well from the slot and out at number 1. Again, I think his best quality is he works the middle of the field. Those slants, digs, crossing routes, deep over routes. Again, things that would be very complementary to Amari Cooper and DPJ in terms of Cooper working the sidelines a little bit, DPJ working deep, and then you could have Slayton and some of these guys working underneath. So I think, again, a good fit. He's very, very productive, and he's been very productive for the Giants.
The other thing is we've talked a lot about guys that are kind of complementary type wide receivers. These guys aren't going to get $10, $12, $15 million a year. And the Browns probably need a guy that can step in and contribute immediately. They can't wait for a guy to develop, and that's probably what you're looking at in the third round, third round, if you get a wide receiver.
Well, yeah, I think the guys that can get our free agents are the guy. They might be more successful if they can't get Campbell, in terms of guys who are just complete receivers and guys who can contribute right away. Some of the college guys that I've watched are really explosive. The Dell kid out of Houston. Some other guys are really, really explosive in terms of that slot receiver. I think they need a guy who can make an impact with speed and get open in there and make some easy yards. That might be a veteran guy who can play inside and outside and just understands the game. But the Browns definitely need a third guy who can be productive for them.
Yeah, especially if you're paying a guy $230 million guaranteed, you're going to throw the ball more than you have in previous years, being the Browns.
Well, and right now he has to be perfect. Every throw has to be perfect, and that's really hard. It's nice to throw, like you saw that throw to Campbell, to throw a little quick screen and have your guy get 20. Now you've changed field position. You're in easy situations for a coordinator to call plays. It just makes everything a lot easier, And I've said this over and over. When you watch the Browns on offense, they do great things, but everything is so hard and so earned, and there's never an easy drive for the Browns. They do a great job of having those 10, 12 play drives. They need some 3-play drives with a 60-yard pass to kind of get them in rhythm.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Always really good film breakdowns, cleveland.com, as well as The Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Casey Kinnamon on the other side of the break. We continue talking Browns. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns here on Sports for CLE. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Everybody is kind of like, oh, we need a receiving running back in the backfield. We need a Jerick McKinnon. We need a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But do we not have Demetrius Felton on the roster anymore? I don't think we need to pick up another receiving back. I think we already have that. I just think Kevin needs to utilize him a lot more alongside with Jerome Ford. Those are receiving backs right there. I think that their skill sets are really, really phenomenal, and I think that Kevin needs to find a way, along with Dump Mitchell, who is the run game coordinator, ways to get them into space and get them going. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. So this is a guy to keep an eye on. This is Tyjae Spears. He is a running back from Tulane, and anybody that watched Tulane's bowl game here against USC saw this kid put on a show. He's projected to be now a 4th-round pick I'm guessing he's going to move up because he's going to test like crazy at the combine. He's got really good football speed. He's a threat out of the backfield. Felton might be the guy, but I don't know that Demetric Felton is that explosive. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon, Dog Pound Daily. Casey, Felton, they haven't really utilized him in that role, so it's unfair to say he can't do it. He hasn't done great things when they've given him the opportunity from the slot.
That's kind of what makes you think. They've kept him around for a couple years now, and that might have been done with the forethought that he could fulfill a role as a pass-catching running back after they decide to move on from Kareem Hunt. But, and I expect he'll get a chance to compete in that arena, but by no means are they going to just go in the next season with Demetric Felton just given the role of third down back. He's going to have to compete for it. And I do believe they're going to draft some guys to bring in to give him competition. Tyjae Spears would be a phenomenal pick if they could get him, but I'm with you. I seem to think he's going to go, late day 2. I think he's going to be a third-round pick, and I just don't think the Browns will spend that kind of assets for a running back when they have holes in other areas like they do. I think a couple of other names to keep an eye on would be like Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State or Evan Hall from Northwestern. Both of those guys they could get in the later rounds, perhaps even a UDFA for Hall, and still get that same kind of skill set.
Yeah, you're looking for a guy, again, get the ball in space. And I agree with the caller. They got to find a way to get the ball in the hands of guys out of the backfield in space where a defensive back or a linebacker has to be like, how am I going to stop this guy? You know what I mean? There's a lot of green space, and this guy's kind of hard to catch.
Yeah, when you look around the league, other teams, when they have pass-heavy offenses, the running backs are, always involved, and the Browns have kind of been lacking in that in past years.
All right, I know you've written an article about this. How do you think the Browns could maximize Nick Chubb?
Well, it started when there was a graphic that came out after the Super Bowl showing the leading rusher in the Super Bowl versus their salary. And it was a bunch of rookie contracts and vet minimums. So people automatically said, well, we can't win it with Chubb. Like Nick Chubb's what's holding you back from the Super Bowl. That's ridiculous. But how can they get him more involved? If they're going to be a more pass-heavy offense, Nick Chubb needs to be a part of that. Now, he doesn't need to be a focal point by any means, but he needs to be able to threaten the defense, because the way it is now, as soon as Nick goes off the field, it's pretty much a tell that it's going to be a pass. They need to get him a couple routes, For everything that Nick Chubb is, he's not a nuanced route runner. So if you could get him just, wheel routes or like an angle route, like a Texas route, something like that, just get that in his repertoire so he can give defenses something to think about. And it's also a way to get your best playmaker the ball 1 to 2 extra times a game. And I just think if the Browns are going to go forward being a pass-heavy offense, it's foolish not to include Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would take it to the next step, like the voicemailer had said. Think about Nick Chubb in space with only a safety or a defender or a linebacker around. That the defensive coordinators don't want to see that.
Now you'll see a lot of business decisions getting made out there if that's the case. Nick's a nightmare in open field, and I think they need to find more creative ways to get him there.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. All right. This is interesting. Offensive conversion rates with 1 or 2 yards to go. This is from Warren Sharp's football. X-axis, third down conversion rate. Y-axis, fourth down conversion rate. That's 1 or 2 yards to go. You see the Browns they're at the 60%, 70% range, which it's not great. The other issue is there were some times in first and second downs that they weren't getting to third downs enough.
Yeah, absolutely. The third down rate's always going to be a telltale sign, staying on the field. But that fourth down rate's what's concerning, because you'll see the 70% number and think, well, that's not that bad. Well, when you roll the dice as many times as the Browns do, you need that to be at least 80%, because when you don't get it, that's a turnover. So if you're turning the ball over 30% of the time that you go for it on fourth downs, that proves the juice not worth the squeeze. So they have to revise some things in their approach to how they handle these matters. And I don't mind the aggressive nature of going forward on fourth downs, but they got to know when to pull the reins back. They got to get a better feel for that.
Yeah, and again, 30% of the time you're not making it, it's you're right. It's a turnover. That's the same as throwing an interception on third down, and it might even be worse because you're giving it to them wherever the line of scrimmage is, basically.
Yeah.
All right. So NFL predictions for 2023 from ESPN. Who will have a breakout season? Seth Walder goes with Okunronro, a defensive end, flashed with a 19% pass rush win rate off the edge, 13th best on a bad Houston team. Got 5 sacks, is a free agent, and in a better situation where opponents are forced to pass more often, he'd be getting more playing time and could have a breakout season. So this again is Okunronro, guy that has been, in some instances, somebody that they think the Browns might be interested in.
I'm not even going to attempt to butcher that young man's name. I'm just going to call him Big O.
I'll do it for both of us.
But yeah, if you look at him, I mean, he's a 6'1", 253-pound edge rusher. Has success off the edge. He shows that he can win his pass rush reps. And the Browns need to, this feels like something the Browns would be in on because he's not going to carry a high price tag. He shows that he can be successful. He's only 28 years old. You know, he was a 5th-round pick for the Rams, was always a backup there, and got a little playing time with Houston and shown that he could be effective. So he's coming along. And at face value, you look at his size, and it would traditionally be something that Andrew Berry would not be in on. But if you look at Jim Schwartz, he's had success with players with this kind of build. You look at a Brandon Graham, you know, that's a terrific case in point, you know. So I think Big O would be someone they should be in on.
Yeah, and again, you mentioned Jim Schwartz. That's a guy that has a similar reputation to Bill Callahan with defensive linemen. Guys are going to want to come here because they think Jim Schwartz will be able to unlock their best performance.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. He will raise the abilities just by getting him in the room, and someone like Big O would be a definite addition to this defensive end room. And it's going to come from multiple areas, but they need to get at least 1 or 2 free agents, and they probably won't be signing names. I know everybody wants to get the names, but it's going to be guys like this that actually like raise the floor of the room.
Yeah, and the reason they're not going to, I don't think they're going to sign any big names is because you're going to probably see 3 or 4 that are brought in because you need immediate help. And then you also, if you can find a couple younger guys, you got to be able to, to filter in and keep it sustainable. And right now, their young guys aren't stepping up, and they don't have any veterans. That's a terrible combination.
Yeah, it's a bad place to be, isn't it? Yeah, but you also have to think they have some young guys who haven't been performing. Will Schwartz be able to coach them up? Will we see another level up? Now, we know what we saw last year when we were hoping, just counting on someone being able to step up, and then no one ever did, and then you're just left wanting all season. So that won't be the plan going into it, but it'd be a nice addition if it's able to happen during the season when you already have other players in place.
Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily and I are going to step aside, take one more time out to other side of the break. We'll take a look at some potential free agent casualties, talking some wide receivers. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily. Take a look at this. So looking at some NFL free agent numbers, and a lot of people talking about Denver trading Jerry Jeudy. Not sure that's the route they're going to go, considering they can save $14 million with a post-June 1 designation for Courtland Sutton. For a franchise that is strapped for cap savings, that would be a better route. It's an interesting number. It's interesting. I think Courtland Sutton is kind of identified as their number one big-bodied, and Jeudy came on late this year. But with Sean Payton going over there, he might look at Courtland Sutton and say, I have my Michael Thomas.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a phenomenal receiver. Has all the skill. Big, like you said, big body, great at the catch point, great down the boundary. And he's a diversifying skill set from what they have in Jeudy. You know, Judy's that little quick burst twitch guy, and Sutton's like a big hitter. He has had trouble staying healthy throughout his career, but he was able to play in 15 games last year. I think it was 109 targets, and 64 receptions. He could definitely be a big part of their offense. So I don't know if they'll be that keen to let go, but 14 million is a big number. It just depends on what they're looking at, going into the year. They also have, I think, is that Hamlin is his name? Another receiver they have that's coming off there. So, there's going to be some interesting things what shakes out in Denver. Yeah, and again, we've been talking on this show about Jerry Jeudy because he fits kind of the skill set that we think the Browns could add and be very effective along those lines. Browns have been connected to Allen Lazard, who is expected to be a free agent. Packers could decide to go after him. In a relatively weak wide receiver class, Lazard, one of the top options available, elite run blocker, something that would endear him to Browns coaching staff in a run-first attack. Coming off career year, 60 catches, 788 yards, 6 touchdowns. Lazard would be an ideal fit for Cleveland, given his skill set and intangibles he brings to the field. Well, he's coming off a career year because he had a guy named Devontae Adams playing in front of him for most of the time, and I don't think the Browns are going to be a run-first offense. I think they will run the ball more than most teams, but they're not going to be run-first. Yeah, if a wide receiver is an elite run blocker, that's a bonus, but it's not going to be the reason that Cleveland brings him in. They didn't pay $230 million to Deshaun Watson to just go get wide receivers who can run block. And I like Lazard. He's huge, 6'5", 230. He's got good speed. To me, he's just another version of Donovan Peoples-Jones, though. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they want to just double up on their skill sets. I still think they need that deep threat, that real speed, and a natural slot. That's something they still don't have on this team. So when they go look for wide receivers, your team doesn't get worse if you bring Lazard in, but it really doesn't make you any more dynamic than you already are. Yeah, in my mind, you're trying to unlock everything that Deshaun Watson can give an offense. And, you take all the good football players you can get. And Allen Lazard's a good football player. I'm just not sure he's the right skill set. So along those lines, let's take a look at this. These are the highest potential pre-June 1st cut trade wide receivers that are expected to be out there. And let's go through them all, and we'll see if you think any of them fit what the Browns might need. Keenan Allen from the Chargers, Devontae Parker from the Patriots, Tyler Boyd from the Bengals, Robert Woods, Tennessee, Corey Davis from the Jets, Kendrick Bourne also from the Patriots, Braxton Berrios also from the Jets, Marquez Valdez-Scantling from the Chiefs, and Robbie Anderson from Arizona. Anybody there intrigue you? Well, there's a few names. I would start with Braxton Berrios. I think right there you have a natural slot. You have a guy that can access those areas of the field. Also won't be a huge hit to your cap number. I think that's someone they'd be interested in. They traditionally don't go after older players. If they were to, I wouldn't be mad at bringing a Robert Woods in. I think that would kind of give you that speed threat. Now, he is getting on the wrong side of it, so we'll see how long he has that speed, but he's proven to be dangerous, in that area. And Marquez Valdez-Scantling, that is someone I would be interested in. They didn't ever find he didn't find the fit on the Chiefs that I thought he would when he went there, which kind of worries you because if you can't do that there, we know where can you. But I think he has the physical makeup to make Cleveland a more explosive team.
Yeah, you look at Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, and then Hardman. I mean, they just keep throwing guys that can run, and that's kind of where you want the Browns to get to because of the type of quarterback that you now have.
Yeah, they just don't have those kind of bodies to run out there in those kind of numbers, but getting someone like MVS in the house would be a good start. I think you look at all possibilities. On that list, you see a lot of guys who wouldn't make the Browns better, though, even though they're good football players, like we talked about earlier. Like I like Tyler Boyd. I just don't think the addition of him would make this team any more explosive. So I think we just need to focus on skill sets and not worry about names so much.
Yep, agree with you wholeheartedly. Casey Kinnamon, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out, Dog Pound Daily. Each week, in conjunction with the Ohio Lottery Partners in Education Program, we recognize a role model student from somewhere across the state of Ohio. Today, we head to Aurora High School to meet Elena Brooker. Elena, not only a star swimmer, four-time state qualifier, soon to be four-time state qualifier for the state swim meet, also a 4.0 student in the classroom. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education Program is proud to salute Elena Brooker, this week's Shining Star. Hundreds of hours of work in the pool for a few seconds. That's the trade-off all elite swimmers like Aurora's Elena Brooker make.
I was actually born in South Carolina, and I swam on a summer team with one of my friends, and she talked me into swimming club, and then she moved to Georgia and I moved to Ohio, but she ended up making her Olympic trial cut in the 200 backstroke, and I always just thought that was amazing. Like, I knew her, like that could be me, so that's kind of what kept me going.
She has off days, we all have off days. She'll come to practice and just be like, man, my legs hurt, my arms hurt, my stomach hurts kind of thing. But you never see that in the water. The second she gets in the water, she's like, all right, I'm here to work, I'm here to improve. And she just keeps swimming. I mean, I know it's a lame thing to say, but she makes you realize that if you put in the work, it can pay off, and it's just inspiring to see the dedication that she's put into the team.
And it's paid off for Brooker. She's on track to qualify for the state championship swim meet for the 4th straight season. Her best event is also her favorite one.
My favorite event is the 100 breast, and I like the 100 especially because it's a sprint, and I like sprints, and it's something where it's a leg-driven stroke, and I have a lot more lower body strength and upper body strength, so that helps me out. Breaststroke is definitely one of the most powerful strokes, I think, because even if it's not the fastest, it takes the most effort. It's a lot of drag, so you have to have more power to overcome that drag.
Her times in the breaststroke just seem to keep dropping, and there's a big difference between freshman Elena and senior Elena.
One difference is definitely I started weight training over the summer with my club team, so that definitely helped out with my strength, and this coach I've been seeing helps with technique that I didn't get through either club or high school just because of the number of people on the team.
She has continued to exceed expectations and impress us in and out of the water. I mean, she's an incredible student athlete. She is a friend to everyone on our team. She's our team captain this year. I mean, she's such an incredible leader and just all around an amazing person. I mean, I am devastated that she's graduating this year, and I will definitely cry. It's been a running joke the last couple years that I cry every year when our seniors graduate. But I mean, I really have gotten to know Elena and just have loved having her on our team.
In the classroom, Brooker shines as well. She's a 4.0 student at Aurora and puts in as much work with the books as she does in the pool.
My academics are really important because for me, I know that I'm not going to be a pro swimmer. Like, I might be a really good athlete and college athlete, but in the long run, I'm going to get a job, and I need strong academics to get that. So right now in college, I'm looking to continue my swim career, but also study biomedical engineering.
Her hours in the pool have also had an impact on her interest in the biomedical engineering field.
I'm really interested in sports prosthetics and kind of just the adaptation and how that would work in not only sports but also swimming, because I've had friends that have sports prosthetics in swimming and they could be better, so I think that's really interesting.
With her work ethic and determination, Brooker has a good chance to make her mark both in the pool and in whatever she pursues. If you know a student who deserves recognition, we want to hear about them, and you can nominate them completely online. Go to ohiolottery.com, find the About section. Click on Partners in Education. There you will see links to nomination forms. Nominate that student as an academic all-star, and they could end up being featured as our next shining star. Well done, Elena Brooker from Aurora High School. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here Monday at 4 o'clock. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.